If you've got big dreams and bad genes, you are in the right place. These shirts are available at barbellapparel.com, link below. Guys, let's cut to the chase. Steroids are everywhere. Like, the average person has no idea how prolific they are in lifting culture. You might be inclined to think that getting a bottle of D-ball involves going to the shady part of town on a Tuesday afternoon when people should be at work and interacting with Jesse Pinkman's friends. But actually, every corporate gym in the United States has multiple people selling gear, and these are people that are clean, that shower, that usually have gainful employment and no rap sheet. It's about as dangerous as asking somebody for a carpet cleaner recommendation. Still a little skittish and don't want to talk to people in person about it? Then you can handle it like a late night Krispy Kreme DoorDash, draw your blinds, order it online, and then sit in shame in the dark while you hope that your neighbors don't find out. Now, the fact that steroids are everywhere does make it really hard to do some things with confidence, like know what the actual bell curve of non-steroid lifting performances look like. And without that clear-cut information, just the deluge of pharmaceutically enhanced bodies and performances that exist online, it's easy for many lifters who don't have a lot of experience to hunker down in online forums with other low-level lifters as they invent the story of what is possible without drugs. And unsurprisingly, this often leads to a mass delusion that because drugs are everywhere, you must not be able to do anything without them. And that's a myth that I'm here to bust. So we're gonna take everything we know about the human body, the history of sport, the origin of steroids, and get to the bottom of the question: what is the natty limit? Now, we got to give a little history lesson beforehand if we're going to compare lifters. Testosterone was synthesized in 1935. Before that point, steroids simply didn't exist. There's this misconception that after 1935, it must just be that every lifter that wanted to gain an ounce of muscle must have been shooting up like Wendy the Hooker from Breaking Bad. That's my second Breaking Bad reference. That's completely accidental. I stand by it. It was a better show and a better time. Now, I personally believe that it's silly to think that anybody was really using steroids before the 1950s, let alone that it's widespread, and I'll explain. One of the key turning points was in the 1950s when the Soviets started using steroids for their Olympic team. This is when they started absolutely dominating, and Americans were like, oh my God, it must be their secret Soviet periodization techniques, which we still repeat to this day. And it was really mainly that they were the first to start using steroids on their athletes. This didn't really get back to the Americans until 1954, when Dr. Ziegler, a member of the York Barbell Club who oversaw a lot of American weightlifters, took a trip to Vienna. In 1954, the story goes, over some drinks, he pressed a Soviet coach, hey, what are you giving your guys? And the answer was that they're Celtec. Testosterone, that was a big secret. They were all getting administered testosterone, and it gave them an advantage that allowed them to dominate the Olympics, which caused Dr. Ziegler to go back home and start experimenting on his guys, including bodybuilding legend John Grimmett. Now, the results weren't fantastic apparently, and there were unwanted side effects, which caused Dr. Ziegler to go on and create Dianabol, which would be the drug that would transform the face of all lifting culture, from weightlifting to bodybuilding to fucking pro wrestling. Now, riddle me this: if an actual doctor, the literal creator of Dianabol, a guy who was part of York Barbell Club and oversaw the Americans who were tasked with going and beating those commie bastards on the biggest stage in sport, was not wise to the use of testosterone before 1954, what are the odds that anybody else was? I'm gonna go ahead and say next to fucking zero. But people will believe that Marvin Eder, a kid who was in high school in the Bronx at 18 years old, knew about steroids, had the connections to convince a doctor to administer steroids to him regularly, and had the fucking money to pay for it. Because they'd rather buy into that silly bullshit than believe that a 19-year-old could actually bench press over 400 pounds without drugs, which is exactly what he is claimed to have done in 1952, 2 years before Ziegler found out about testosterone use in the Soviet Olympic team. But I digress. It's not worth playing the what if conspiracy bullshit game, so I'm going to save us that headache and put a hard line at 1935, the first synthesization of testosterone, and say that everything before that was obviously pre-steroid. Now, of course, there's still going to be some obnoxious goons that insist that they were still using. They'll say, wait a minute, what about bull testicles and cow urine and the brown sequard elixirs? That has long been proven to be bullshit. This is something we can and have tested. The whole reason that we have highly toxic oral steroids like methyl testosterone that absolutely fuck your liver up is because if you take an entire vial of purely distilled, synthesized testosterone and drink it, nothing fucking happens to you because it's not orally bioavailable. So you take the trace amounts that exist when you crush cow testicles and blood and semen and urine and mix it into this bullshit snake oil. The studies on this stuff show that you get about 1/10,000th the amount you need for a recognizable effect in the bloodstream, so it's bullshit. I know you want to believe that everybody back through antiquity, Sandow, Louis Attila, the fucking ancient Egyptians, they were all dirty. I know it's tempting to believe that anybody without the nice smooth marble of blubber that is indicative of the average American diet was in fact cheating. But I hate to break it to you, nobody before 1935 was taking anything that was steroids or had a steroid-like effect. Now, if you still don't believe me, then go eat your semen-covered bull testicles dipped in cow urine because it's natural. It's not banned anywhere. You get to save your natty status, and apparently that's the ticket to having sub 35% body fat and actually being able to bench press your body weight. Now that we've squared away that madness, let's go to some evidence of the natty limit. This is what you're here for. The good news that natties can actually get really strong and jacked. Or I guess if you've been sucking your entire lifting career, it's probably bad news. Now we're gonna start with the low-hanging fruit, and that's just old pictures of people being more jacked than the modern lifter. These are the famous ones. We got the super shredded pictures of the Victorian strongman era and Bronze era lifters going up through the 1900s, the 1910s. We got Eugen Sandow, the granddaddy of bodybuilding himself. We have Bobby Pandor looking like a skinned cat from my college anatomy class. Like, these guys look like striated sirloin jumped off the butcher block, put on a mustache, and started doing poses. It's ridiculous. And this is all without modern nutritional info, without a GNC, without 9 million goddamn books, articles, vlogs on a million different ways to train. These are guys that just knew hard work, repetition, consistency, and the desire to be as good as they possibly could was going to make them incrementally better. And if you stick to that, it's going to take you somewhere. These guys were able to build more than a little muscle and a lot of fucking strength, and they could do it at a very, very low body fat. I know we're all here for the mass and the strength, guys, but it's good to know that anybody can get lean, really, if aesthetics your primary goal. Like, all you need to do is maintain as much muscle as a pug, and if you can get your body fat down to single digits, you're gonna have a killer fucking physique. Alexander Zass is another freak who had a very good physique despite not having any of the modern amenities. He was born in 1888, for God's sakes. And you don't have to fact check his numbers when there's a picture of him holding a goddamn horse knee deep in fucking water. Now, obviously this isn't a 2,000-pound draft horse, but still 500 pounds of this rotund wriggling corpus moving around your neck. That is no easy feat for anybody to pick up, especially when they're knee deep in water. So this obviously took something that a lot of modern lifters don't have, again, without any steroids. Now, unsurprisingly, as you get more mass, you get to the bigger fellas, it's a little harder to keep that dick skin shredded look. You're not gonna look like veiny ball skin when you're getting to 230, 260, 300 pounds. And that brings us to guys like George Hackenschmidt, Herman Gorner. These were the strongmen, the big guys known through the early 1900s, but they're still 10 times leaner than the average American government worker. And again, they did this without pharmaceutical grade fat burners. There were no goddamn nutritional labels on their food. No clusterfuck that is nutritional sciences. These guys were able to do insane feats of strength without being 40% body fat. Now here's the real kick in the pants. I was really eager to show you guys this one because this is proof not only that these older performances, older physiques are absolutely attainable, but to show you how far off the mark so many people are with their expectations of what they should be able to do because they only surround themselves in real life with people that suck. These are some of the lesser known strong women of the day. You have Sandwina and Volcana. These were some bad bitches, and I can show you the images of them doing really crazy bad bitch stuff like lifting adult humans over their head with one arm. But really all I have to do is show you these pictures of them posing from behind. So you can see the girth of their arms, shoulders, upper back meat. These are the ladies back when literally no ladies lifted. No people really lifted, but even fewer ladies lifted. And there was obviously no steroids. You had 10,000 times fewer competitors. You had no established methods, no real access to resources. to varied training methodologies. The methodologies that existed were primitive at the time. They had no testosterone in their body, and they're still way more jacked than the average modern gym goer is with all of the available knowledge, equipment, and resources that they have at their disposal. If this isn't a sign to close the goddamn PubMed browser and go get your fucking hands dirty, I don't know what is.
You ever find yourself confused by the complexity of programming? I know I struggled like crazy in my early strongman career. There was just too much advice, and every decision I made felt like a guess. As soon as I hit a snag in any program, I would have no idea what to do, so I would inevitably bail. It took me years of training and coaching to figure out how to predictably increase muscle and strength, both in myself and others. And those lessons took me to my own showings in World's Strongest Man, America's Strongest Man, and the Arnold in the 231-pound weight class. This is why we made Base Strength AI, to give clear, direct, and personalized instruction right in the middle of your workout in real time. Base Strength AI features 3 programs: Block, 70s Powerlifter, and Bull Mastiff, each one inspired by the work ethic and programming of the biggest and strongest bodybuilders, powerlifters, and strongmen throughout history. These templates originated in my book Base Strength, and they can be ran as is, but with Base Strength AI, weight and volume are prescribed to you on your specific feedback, and that's personalization that even an online coach can't replicate. This gives you the absolute certainty that every rep is meaningful, that every block of training is getting you closer to your goals. It's my programming, but it's your program. Get the heart of old school training with the intelligence of a coach right in your back pocket. Head now to basestrength.com.
Now let's get on to some concrete numbers. This is what you're really here for. How strong could they be really? Now the problem is, just like after the creation of steroids, it put a big fuzzy question mark as to whether any feat we look at is actually natty. We can never really know. The same thing before the steroid era is when lifting was kind of in its infancy. We can't really know for sure if the numbers cited were actually legit, because so many of them were gym lifts, things people saw, exhibitions, circus sideshows. Thing is, people lie about weights today. They do it all the time. There's fake plates. Even when we have digital scales, cameras, and Wi-Fi on every fucking continent, it still exists in lifting culture. So when you go back in time before things like federations existed, like literally you're making money by demonstrating feats in front of a crowd, what exactly is your incentive to have the weights be exactly what you say they are? And who the fuck is gonna test your work? I mean, today we had Athlete X, Brad Castleberry. We had this guy, Valentin Ducoul, like a decade ago that was making up bullshit lifts. There's a lot of money in being a fucking charlatan, guys. So for that reason, I look at everybody throughout the 1800s with a raised eyebrow. Do not get me started on Saxon's bullshit bent press numbers. So the sweet spot we're going to look at is the 1920s through 1936, as this is when Olympic lifting was featuring weightlifting again. And that was the main formal standardized contest where you knew that people were lifting what they said they were lifting. So if we can start with the small fry, start with Sig Klein, who was born in 1902. Siggy here was 150 pounds. So as a guy lifting in the 1920s without Instagram making him feel bad every day, what was old Siggy capable of doing? Well, this man was able to strict press 230 pounds. That's right. At 150 pounds, this guy could put on 2 plates. And with the uber strict Olympic style, standing straight like a plank of board, pushing the bar around his face, he was able to press 230 pounds. He had a one-arm snatch of 160, clean and jerk of 270. And even without those numbers, we saw images of Sig doing a whole bunch of acrobatic stuff that requires a lot of strength that many people don't possess. Now, as we jump up to the 200-pound mark, which is the minimum classification for being an adult male, we have legend John Grimmick, who didn't start experimenting with testosterone until Ziegler introduced it to him after Grimmick had already retired in the 1950s. In the 1930s, Grimmick had 19-inch arms. He was able to do a laid-back press with 366 pounds. Again, this is all before steroids existed, and he did it with the physique that could actually pull bitches today. But that's all small potatoes. The one that makes my jaw drop, the one that makes a half sandwich appear in my pocket, is the 1920s Olympic weightlifting champion, Charles Rigoulot. That's French. I know that's not how you pronounce it. I don't care. The dude's body weight has been pinned anywhere from 180 to 230 pounds, but he was credited with the first 400 plus pound clean and jerk. He could do a 250 plus pound one-hand snatch. And in 1930, he became the first person to complete an overhead lift of the Apollon railway car wheels, which are what the Apollon wheels at the Arnold Classic are based off of a 366-pound fixed axle. And I don't know if any of you follow the Arnold, if you've seen the compilation reel of people getting their shit pushed in on the Apollon's wheels, guys that weigh 350 pounds are on enough oral steroids to kill Seabiscuit. And this was completed by a guy in the 20s. Again, no modern amenities, no steroids, and at a relatively light body weight. The fact is, the limit for human strength is much higher than people readily would like to admit. Now, if we look at modern powerlifting, today's natty nights in the IPF, we can look at the study that was done breaking down the difference between tested powerlifters and untested powerlifters. They lined up the world records and saw that there was about a 12% difference. Now I know cheaters abound. I'm not even trying to say that everybody in the IPF or tested feds are natural, because obviously that isn't the case, but the culture is different. You can see some of the biggest numbers in the lower weight classes. You can look at the physiques, the style of lifting. Now I'm gonna make the case that that actually tracks. There's people that think that's bullshit, but as much as the drugs do, and the drugs absolutely do a lot, they don't do everything. And even in a world where drugs don't exist, you still have the rare cream of the crop genetics that are able to add a lot of muscle with less effort, to do so with very low body fat, and they just build strength like crazy. So you have to take your example of the best untested lifters, take a Pete Rubish or a John Hack, and ask yourself, if they never touched gear, what would they be lifting? Does anybody believe that Pete Rubish wouldn't be an 800-pound deadlifter if he never touched the sauce? Because he pulled 920 on a whole bunch of shit throughout his career. Even now, as a skinny runner weighing 40 pounds less, he's still knocking on around a 700-pound deadlift, prioritizing marathon. Now, this is an important point when discussing the natty limit, because when steroids don't exist, you still have a whole bunch of people that are better than you could ever possibly be, because genetics are one of the biggest determinants of outcome, of how you respond to training, and the decisions you have to exactly make at every turn throughout your training lifetime. So those who have the genetics are always going to be a step ahead of you. So I would argue that steroids really aren't your problem. In a world without steroids, you're still upset that genetically superior people exist. Now, I think it's important to look at some of the guys from back in the day and point something out. We have seen the numbers track steadily, directly in line with the proliferation of steroids into lifting culture. However, there is something coincidental going on that's not being taken into account, and that is the popularity of lifting absolutely fucking exploded over the last 100 years. Right around the time steroids became popular, that's right around the time we started getting modern health clubs. That's when magazines became more popular. That takes us into the golden age, where Arnold became a superstar before he was an actual superstar. And then these guys end up becoming household names, and they influence wrestling, powerlifting gets big, strongman gets big, and they start to infect culture at large. And this is where lifting just became more and more popular. The number of people who lift weights today is about 10,000 times higher than it was around 1900 for the number of people on the planet, the number of gyms available, the number of people who have or routinely do go to the gym. It is so much higher, it's not even funny. Now think about this. If you go out and you buy one lottery ticket, what are your odds of hitting any type of payday? Not very good. If you go out and you buy 10,000 lottery tickets, now not only are your chances good, but the paydays you hit are going to be bigger, and there's going to be more of them. It's the exact same thing with genetics. With so many more people competing, we have better genes. That's causing people to push harder to make sure they don't leave any stone unturned. So methods have to be better. People have to be on point. You have to be a little more off, a little more vicious. You have to sacrifice more of your life. And all of that makes up for huge swings forward in performance. Of course, the drugs make a big impact, but it's important to note that the people we see from yesteryear are not the rare genetic specimens you might think they are, because statistically they can't be, because nobody was fucking lifting back then. So that should give you some perspective on where that bell curve is actually shifted. Now, the important thing is where your natty limit is, because if we concern ourselves with just what humans as a whole are capable of doing, it's always going to bias towards the rare types that have nothing to fucking do with who we are. Like if somebody with a plus 35 ape index is able to deadlift 5,000 pounds because they only have to move it 3 centimeters off the ground, that's going to be the best deadlift. Somebody with an extreme body type, extreme build, extreme response to stimulus, that's not you. To understand your natty limit, you have to start by understanding it has fuck all to do with what anybody else can do. If we establish the bell curve is shifted from where you thought it was, and it's likely that you're in the middle of the bell curve, that probably means that you're capable of more than you thought. But that doesn't have anything to do with what the best of the best are capable of doing. Now, for some people that might be empowering. I found it empowering. But those of you who are constantly gauging your self-worth around the accomplishments of others, I guess this is bad news because it means you should have done more than what you've done so far. You as an individual, you might have a genetic muscle wasting defect and you can't gain a single ounce, or you may grow muscle and strength like absolute gangbusters. But the only way to know what you now with your available resources, knowledge, discipline are able to do is if you commit like 10 fucking years to the cause. The real gift of lifting weights or setting goals isn't to be the best, because you're almost guaranteed not to be the best. But you don't have to be the best out there. You need to be good within your sphere of people. You look at 20, 30, 50 people in your immediate sphere of influence, becoming the strong person, the person who's physically more capable than everybody else. If that's your primary goal, that is really, really, really fucking attainable. And that's going to be exactly what dictates your value in that group. So when people say things like, I don't want to compete if I don't have a chance of winning, that's like dumb internet, lazy logic. The point of playing games isn't to win. It's to play the game knowing you'll probably lose. And if you lose, you play again a little bit better. And over time, you get better. The joy is in the process of playing the game, not necessarily winning, even though the goal drives the process and the enjoyment. We intuitively know that someone that says, I don't want to play Pictionary unless I can win, is a piece of shit. That's somebody you don't really want to hang around, and you're probably going to be justified in making conclusions about how they handle the rest of their life that's actually important. I see no reason why that doesn't apply to lifting or why it shouldn't be applied to every other sport. So if you accept that your limit is what it is, then there are two realities. One where you work to get as close to it as you can and reap the benefits of all the hard work and practice, the social bonding with other people in that field, where you build authority, where you can help other people, where you actually have stories that you can share that make you an interesting and deep person. And at the end of the day, you're stronger, more muscular, look better, leaner, and live longer than you would have otherwise. Or the other scenario is the one where you stay on your ass, coping on internet forums with other low-level, bitter lifters about the unfairness of it all, how you don't have the genetics of a Chris Hemsworth or a John Hack. It doesn't take the world-building mind of a George R.R. Martin to see what the ultimate conclusion is of that story arc. It doesn't take you to a good fucking place. I started lifting when I was 12 years old, and 15 years later, before I hopped on gear, I was still growing. You don't know what your actual limit is until you dedicate a good decade of your time to getting good. So the only reason to do it isn't to be the best, it's to do it for yourself because you want to. You want the journey, you want the stories, you want the experience, because all of that is what props you up as a person, not arbitrarily, do I have 17-inch arms or 18.5-inch arms? And whether the natty bench limit is 400 pounds or 4 million pounds, 100% of you are going to be better for committing to taking that journey and doing so with gratitude and glee. So that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think. Do you think the natty limit is higher than many people think? Do you think I'm full of shit and it's just really too unreasonably hard to get decently strong in today's competitive era? Let me know what you think in the comments. So don't forget, best way to support this channel is to go to barbellapparel.com, pick up a tee, Big Dreams, Bad Jeans. We got Strength Conquers, Brick by Brick, and their shorts and pants are fucking incredible. It's only shit that I wear while filming late summer in a garage in Texas. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Till next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.